I'm Mike Morford, and I've been researching the Zodiac case for years. Zodiac, just the name. It sounds sinister. It inspires fear. The fact that a serial killer would give himself this moniker is disturbing. He would go on to taunt police by sending letters and codes to newspapers for years. And the attacks, they were something else altogether. If you were a young couple in a secluded area, you could easily be a target. And it wasn't just shootings on dark lovers' lanes. Zodiac would even attack with a knife in broad daylight while wearing an executioner-style hood. After a while, Zodiac changed tactics, and even lone cab drivers weren't safe. The Zodiac killer terrorized the San Francisco Bay Area and then vanished. But he left a lot of clues behind along the way. Clues that we're going to examine closely on the new podcast, Zodiac Speaking. New episodes of Zodiac Speaking come out every other Saturday starting March 13, 2021. Subscribe today wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss a single episode.
Hi, I'm Laura.
And I'm Joe.
And this is Crime Divers.
Hello everybody, welcome to today's episode.
Hello.
And I know it's a normal release day, but it's a special day.
It's my birthday.
Happy birthday to you. You were born in a zoo. You look like a monkey. And you smell like one too.
Thanks.
So it's Laura's birthday today, so happy birthday, Laura.
Thank you.
And I thought I'd give you, well actually, this one's quite gruesome.
Oh, so now my birthday's going to suck because it's going to be a gruesome...
Yeah, it's
bad
quite a...
murder.
I mean, all murders are bad.
Of
but
course.
This is, yeah, it's quite a bad one.
No, is it?
Yeah.
Well, I better just enjoy my happiness for a minute. It's my birthday. Right. I'm ready. What's it called?
It's called The Murderous Thief.
The Murderous Thief.
Yeah.
Quite a good title. Cool. And where in the world is it?
We are in America.
Cool.
So do you want to dive in?
Well,
We dive into your birthday episode.
let's dive into my birthday episode.
Right, so have you heard of a shop called Lululemon?
No.
Me neither.
Well, I'm hoping you know what it is though.
Well, yeah, I do now, because obviously I had to look it up. So it's a shop that sells, like, gym wear, you know, like, well, a lot of it was, like, yoga pants and stuff, right? But I think, is yoga pants not just what we call gym leggings?
Yeah, just
like workout gear, yeah.
Workout gear, yeah.
So, they're, like, it's expensive, put it this way, right? I just kind of clicked on the first pair of leggings that I saw. We'll say yoga pants.
Yeah.
Right? So I clicked on the first ones that I saw and they were just plain green, like a nice light green colour. And there was like different colours, but the different colours were different prices.
Right.
I don't know why. I didn't actually look at the details. There was maybe different
Probably
details. But the ones I looked at, you ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
£59 for a pair of workout leggings, yoga pants, whatever you want to call them. Right? That was so that was for the green ones.
Uh-huh.
The dearest ones were like a sort of wine colour, like...
Looking ready.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And they were £88. Like, what the actual hell?
Some people are happy to pay that.
I'm not. I will go to Primark and I'll get a pair for like £8.
I think the most I've paid for a pair is maybe like £35
You have not.
for Under Armour ones.
No.
Yeah.
My daughter got a pair of Under Armour ones for TK Maxx and they were like £20.
Well, I've had cheaper ones. But I just mean I must have particularly liked these ones and I was prepared to pay the £45 or £40 ones.
If that's what you want to do and you can afford it, obviously, on you go. But personally, because I'm not a gym person and I'm totally unfit, I wear them more for comfort rather than exercise. So I'm not going to pay. I mean, I think the dearest I would pay would probably be £20. So there's no way would I pay £59. I will go to Primark and actually get a pair for less than a tenner. So, you know, or my daughter will just give me her. Or I've got some of yours your old ones.
Yeah. None of them were expensive ones, so.
No, they're Primark.
No, I think they were Asda's actually.
Well, I'm sure there's a couple of Primark ones.
Nah, I've never bought leggings for Primark. Not gym ones. The Asda's.
Anyway, I've got maybe about 2 that I bought myself, and the rest of them are from you and my door. And I don't even wear them.
Fair enough.
Anyway, so the reason why I'm asking, obviously you're probably wondering why the hell are we talking about a gym wear shop. This is where this crime happened.
Oh, okay.
It was at the Lululemon shop.
Right.
So I don't know if it's just like an American shop or if it's in other places, but obviously, I mean, I don't think we have it. I mean, I think you can obviously shop online.
Yeah.
Because as I said, the prices were in pounds, and I looked, so you can obviously buy stuff online.
Yeah, I don't think we have.
But I've never seen a Lululemon shop.
No, unless it's within a shop. You know, sometimes they have like shops that
Like
sell.
brands, like in a shop.
Yeah. But I've certainly never heard of the brand myself.
No. Okay, so Jayna Murray worked at a Lululemon store in Washington DC in the suburbs of Maryland, Bethesda. She was 30 and she was from Texas originally. She was studying for 2 master's degrees from Johns Hopkins University, as well as working part-time at Lululemon. Her friends described her as a thrill
Did you want to say that one again?
a thrill seeker, and she was adventurous. She had recently done a bungee jump for her 30th birthday, and she had previously been skydiving.
Oh wow.
But she also liked yoga, and she felt that yoga balanced out the adventurous side of her. And maybe that's what drew her to Lululemon, because they sell yoga wear, and from looking at their website, they have like events on, and like you can set goals on there. They have yoga classes, like it looks like they just kind of have a bit of a community. Maybe that's what drew her to that shop. So so that was Jayna. Excuse me. Brittany Norwood also worked at Lululemon. She was 27. She was athletic and outgoing. She was raised in Seattle. She was the 6th of 9 siblings. Whoa! Her parents were busy. And, well, maybe they weren't busy. Need TV. And she was the soccer star of the family. She dreamed of someday playing for the US women's national team. So, that's just a little bit of information about these 2 co-workers. So this brings us to the night of Friday the 11th of March 2011. Jayna and Brittany had been working that night, and they closed the shop for the night at about 9:45. They said goodnight and they went their separate ways. Jayna was going to be driving home and Brittany would be using the public transport. But then Brittany realised that she'd left her wallet in the shop. So she called Jayna and asked her to let her back in, because Jayna was like a sort of manager, so she had keys. She needed her Metro card to get home, otherwise she said that she would have just gotten her wallet the next day, but obviously she needed
that to get home.
Yeah. So Jayna met her back there. So they went back into the shop, but they couldn't see Brittany's wallet. They searched for about 5-10 minutes and still never found it. So eventually Jayna just said, you know what, just take my Metro card. I'm driving anyway, so I'll give you my Metro card. So we can just get home and we'll find your wallet tomorrow.
Especially if I just offered her a lift home.
Well, maybe they lived in completely different.
Oh, well, maybe.
I mean, she was going on the subway, so she might have been going quite far.
Yeah, that's true.
So the next morning, the store manager, Rachel, she walked to work and got there just before 8 a.m, ready to open the shop for the day. But when she got there, the door was unlocked. And she didn't really think that much of it, but she was annoyed. But she just thought that Jayna had just not locked the shop the night before, which was unusual, but still, she was kind of like, didn't really think
too much of it.
Yeah. So when she walked into the shop, it was a mess. There was like clothing rails knocked over, items of clothing on the floor, and there was even like a smashed up TV on the floor as well. So she headed towards like the back of the shop, and she saw bloody footprints.
Oh. And
she stopped in shock. And then she like heard like the tiniest noise, which sounded like a sort of groan, and she just ran out of the shop.
Right.
So outside it was really busy. The shop next door to Lululemon, God, that's hard to say. Lululemon was an Apple store. My belly's rumbling. Did you hear it? The shop next door was an Apple store, and that day was the release of the iPad 2. So people were queuing up before the shop even opened. So a guy called Ryan, who was in the queue, noticed Rachel coming out of Lululemon, looking scared and panicked, and asked if she was okay and if she needed help. She explained to him what she had seen, and he said he would go in with her and have a look. I think she was scared in case somebody was still lurking about, you know, because obviously she's walked in and assumed it was like a robbery, and she heard some sort of noise and, you know, obviously panicked. So as they headed to the back of the shop, they could see that all the tills were open and all the money had been taken out of the tills. So they were like, right, okay, this has been a robbery.
Yeah.
So Ryan headed to the back rooms of the shop, you know, like the staff.
Yeah, it's
the staff
storerooms.
Yeah. The first one he went into, there was broken glass everywhere, stuff was all over the floor, and there was lots of blood. There was blood splattered all over the walls, some as high as 6 feet.
Oh, wow.
And he saw what he thought was a man on the ground in a pool of blood, and he also saw a woman in a bathroom lying on her back on the floor. She had cuts all over her. One of them was like right across her forehead, and her arms, there was cuts in that on her arms which were above her head, and her legs were tied with so her arms and her legs were tied with cable ties, and her arms were above her head.
Right.
And there was a rock on the floor which was covered in blood, which was assumed to have been used to hit her in the head, because she had a big, she had a big slash in her head, but there was like a big sort of bump in that as well.
Right.
She had gym leggings on, yoga pants, whatever you want to call them, and the crotch had been sliced open, like exposing her genitals.
Oh.
So her shirt was pulled up over her stomach, and there was just like blood everywhere, but she was still breathing.
Right.
So he ran back out and told Rachel to call 911. And when officers arrived, it was realised that it was the other person was actually a woman, not a man.
Right.
In the back room, and she was unfortunately dead. So that was Jayna Murray, the one that was dead, and the injured woman was Brittany Norwood. So Jayna was lying face down in a pool of her own blood, and she had a rope around her neck. And because she was lying on her front and the amount of blood there was, they couldn't immediately see where all the blood had came from. There was a toolbox sitting on Jayna's body, like on her back, which was stored property. Most of the tools, however, were scattered around the room and they had blood in them, so the police believed them to be used as weapons. An ambulance rushed Brittany to the hospital, and an officer went with her to find out what had happened. Obviously, she was checked out first, but a lot of her wounds were actually just superficial wounds.
Oh, right, okay.
So she didn't need many stitches, and she just sort of like needed cleaned up just to stop any infection, and so she was well enough to speak to the police. So she told the officer that she and Jayna had closed up the store the night before and told her about forgetting her wallet and basically what I've already told you before.
Yeah.
She told the police. So I told you up to the bit where Jayna had given Brittany her Metro card.
Yeah. And they were going to leave.
And they were leaving for a second time, yeah. So they were just leaving, and two men came out of nowhere. They burst in the door dressed all in black and wearing black masks. She said one was really tall and one was quite short. She said one of the men punched Jayna in the head, and the other one dragged Brittany by her hair to the back of the store and started cutting her. And she said that the men were shouting at them, especially being racially abusive towards Brittany. They even called her the N-word. I'm not saying it. And other stuff that I'm not repeating any racial stuff.
No.
So the man who was beating Brittany raped her, and then she said that he grabbed a wooden clothes hanger and he raped her with that as well.
God.
After that ordeal, he then made her open the tills so that he could steal the money. So whilst this was happening to Brittany, she could hear Jayna's screaming while the other man was attacking her. And she said at one point, obviously because she'd moved to the tills, she could see him sort of attacking her, and she could hear Jayna's screams clearly, but then they just kind of got less and less, and then it was just silence. She said that the men then pushed her down onto Jayna's body, and they told her the only reason she was still alive was because, quote, she was more fun to fuck, end quote.
Oh.
Then the men then grabbed Brittany and dragged her to the bathroom, tied her arms and legs, and then just left her there, and she blacked out until the next morning. So obviously Brittany was taken to the hospital. As I already said, Jayna was taken for an autopsy, and I'm going to tell you the results of the autopsy. So Jayna had received at least 331 separate wounds to her body.
Oh, wow.
And that's only separate wounds, so obviously you're getting wounds on top of each other.
Yeah.
So there was more than
Right.
that, but that was the separate wounds.
Jeez.
Most of them were stab wounds, and there were defence wounds and also wounds around her neck where the rope had been. 200 wounds were on her face, head and neck.
Oh my god.
The rest were mainly on her arms, chest and torso. She had 13 fractures in her skull. And part of her skull had actually caved in.
Oh
Yeah.
god, what a shame.
And this is horrible, pathologists believe that Jayna was alive right up until the last blow. She might not have been conscious, but
Aye.
she was alive.
So she
would
Felt
have felt
a lot.
the majority of
The
it.
majority of it, yeah.
Yeah, until she was alive right until the last blow, which was a stab to the back of her neck that severed her spinal cord. That's what killed her.
God.
I know.
That's awful.
So she suffered all those wounds beforehand while she was still alive.
What? That's horrific.
So
Can't even imagine.
I know. So they also believe that up to 10 different weapons were used to kill Jayna. And they believe that these weapons included a wrench, a hammer, the rope around her neck, 2 different kinds of box cutters, a metal rod, you know those rods that if you want something from up high, out of a clothing, the staff will go and unhook it. One of those. A large serrated knife, a razor, and a Buddha statue that was found close to her body. Because in Lululemon they have Buddha statues, but they're out on the shop floor, so it's obviously being brought from the shop floor. I don't know. So after getting Brittany's account of what happened, the first thing that police wanted to do was check CCTV footage. However, only one shop, because there was a row of shops where the Lululemon was, but only one shop on that row had a camera, and that was the Apple store, because obviously they sell really expensive stuff, so they were the ones that had the...
So they didn't have CCTV inside the shop then?
No.
Oh wow.
They always... Clothing shops mustn't...
I was going to say, because most shops that I know, I think most places have CCTV now. I mean, I just assumed that was a normal thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I kind of thought it was a bit strange as well, but no, the only shop out of... I don't know how many shops there were, but the only one to have it was the Apple store, and, as I said, I'm not surprised they did, because they sell expensive stuff. But so does Lululemon.
Well, yeah.
Like 50 odd quid for a pair of leggings. I can't
go
over that.
I thought you were probably laughing at you going, oh, that's like normal.
I know, there's probably people listening to this going, that's how much I pay.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that, And I'm like, sorry, I'm just a cheapskate.
Yeah.
I don't like spending a lot of money on things that I'm not going to wear very often.
Well, to be fair, I'll just let everybody know
What?
that yesterday you were telling me about your little trunk or little basket of clothes that you either not worn or has tags on it that you had. So you clearly buy stuff and don't wear it anyway.
I know. And it's a little basket's kind of a bit of an understatement. It's a big blanket box.
A big blanket box, yeah. Full of clothes that she's not worn.
Full of clothes. I brought them down from the attic, and there was 3 bin bags full of clothes that have been up there for a couple of years.
That you haven't worn.
That I haven't worn. Or some of them I've worn, but only maybe once or twice.
Yeah.
Some of them still have tags on. So, yeah.
So as much as she's a cheapskate, she does spend money on stuff and then doesn't even wear it.
Can I say though, none of them cost that much. None of them were 50 odd quid for a pair of leggings. There wasn't a lot of leggings in there. Yeah, so the CCTV. So they went to get the footage at that. They went to the Apple store to get footage, and on that footage there was 2 men. They actually captured 2 men who were dressed all in black that were walking past, and it would have been about the same time that the 2 women were leaving Lululemon. But obviously, because it was the Apple.
It would have been on that sort of shop and not on.
Yeah, you can actually see the front door of the Lululemon. But one was quite tall and the other one was quite small. One of them had a rucksack, and Brittany had said that one of the attackers had a rucksack, so they fit Brittany's description. The timeline matched as well, so these 2 men were obviously prime suspects.
Yeah, prime suspects.
However, they did track these men down, and it just turns out that they were just walking past after finishing their shift at a restaurant where they were busboys. So they had to dress all in black.
Right.
And one of them just had a rucksack. It was just a massive coincidence that they matched Brittany's description. So it wasn't them.
Oh.
So another suspect was a homeless guy called Keith. He was known to be quite violent, and he would go to the same bar every night. However, he wasn't there on the night of the murder, which was unusual because, as I said, he was there every night. When police were asking around about him, they were told that Keith had been hanging around with another homeless guy. So that night, Keith had checked into a local hospital and he had been a bit of a state and he was bleeding, so he was looking like a good suspect.
Mm-hmm.
But no, he wasn't the guy either.
Oh.
His clothes didn't have that much blood on them compared to what was in the Lululemon shop. And apparently he just wasn't capable of such an attack because he was like totally out of it. He was babbling on about getting into a fight with some other homeless guy. Like, to carry out an attack like that, it took a lot more than what he was capable of. So police wanted to question other people who would have been around at that time, like sort of employees of other shops, as they probably would have all closed around about the same time. So they started with the Apple store. So they spoke to staff who had been working that night and they asked if they had seen or heard anything. And they had. This is really annoying.
Okay.
So the Apple store actually shared a wall with Lululemon.
Mm-hmm.
And just after 10 p.m, the employees, because they were still working there, I think because the release was the next day.
They were working late, getting ready.
Yeah, so they were getting ready for it. So they heard noises coming from next door. They, because they have CCTV, you could see, I haven't seen the footage, but there was footage of them actually with their ears pressed up against the wall, listening.
Oh, really?
They said it sounded like a struggle was going on. They could hear thuds, they could hear screaming.
So why wouldn't you phone the police?
I don't know.
Or check it out or something?
They heard a female saying, "Talk to me, don't do this, talk to me, and tell me what's going on." And then a while later, the female voice said, "God help me, please help me." And they heard like panting sounds as if somebody was like struggling to breathe, and there's just...
But did nothing?
No, they ignored it. Not one of them, I don't know how many there was of them. I think there was at least maybe 3 or 4 of them, and not one of them thought to call 911. I mean, there was even a security man there. I mean, why did the security guard not think,
something's a bit wrong here?
Yeah, because that the Lululemon shop was all, I'm not sure if it was all female staff or it was the majority was female staff. So you'd think that they'd be like,
well, yeah,
we should really go and check it
out.
out.
If you hear stuff like that, then something's wrong.
Well, the store manager, he was in that night, and so when he was asked what he thought was going on, he said, "Oh, I just thought it was drama between the women who work there." So,
well, even so, I mean, you could still just...
I think they passed it off as...
something like an argument or something.
Well, not even... Well, I don't know what about that, but like the thuds and stuff, like maybe something had fell over and they were... Because they said it sounded like they heard somebody sort of being dragged, like something being dragged, which was probably one of the women, but they thought that maybe like something had been knocked over, and, you know, just...
I mean, I suppose you don't really think that it's something that bad.
You don't... I get that, but... What's the worst that can happen if you're going to phone 911? Just phone them and just say, "Look, I can hear something," like, or even, because I get that they would maybe, I mean, I think I wouldn't want to go and check it out because I think I'd probably be too scared. Yeah. But at least just phone 911 and just say, "Look, I don't know, all I can hear is this kerfuffle going on, like, can you please just go and check it out?"
Yeah.
And then at least you can sleep better that night going, "Well, at least I did
if it was
something."
nothing major, you could say, "Well, alright, I might have overreacted, but at least..."
Well, yeah, exactly. That's the worst that's going to happen, that you might feel a bit embarrassed because you overreacted.
Yeah.
So, just,
yeah,
that's awful.
That is awful.
So, while forensics were checking the Lululemon store, they found a large pair of men's trainers, which I think Americans call them sneakers.
Yes.
So, I'm just going to call them shoes.
Okay.
just to avoid confusion. So, they were an American size 14, which is, to me, that's big.
Massive.
That's massive, yeah. And they were hidden on a shelf. They did have blood on them, but not on the soles. The soles were clean.
Oh, okay.
They were, however, a perfect match to the bloody footprints that were found. So the police were like, what the hell? Like,
how can they make a footprint if there's no blood on the soles?
Well, they were kind of thinking, why did the killer leave his shoes?
Well, yeah, that as well. I mean,
and like, did he change it in different ones when he left? Like, what the hell? So they spoke to Rachel, the store manager, and she was like, "Oh, they belong to Lululemon. They're not the killer's shoes. Those are Lululemon shoes."
All right.
The officers were shocked because they just assumed that the killer, for whatever reason, had dumped his own shoes. But no, Lululemon, they actually provide 2 pairs of shoes for people to try on with the workout gear. So they obviously don't sell footwear.
Right.
But when customers want to try on, say, a pair of yoga pants, they might not have the right foot, but they might come in with a pair of heels on.
Yeah.
And they want to get an idea of what they would look like with the right footwear.
Right.
So they do sell a few men's. I think it's mainly a women's store, but they do sell a few men's things. So basically, they just have the size 14's men's shoes, which I'm assuming is just because they'll basically fit any man. So they won't have that one pair of shoes. So
just to get an idea.
Just to get an idea. Yeah, it doesn't matter if they're too big, does it? It's just get an idea. So I'm assuming that they would have had a pair of men's shoes and a pair of women's shoes, and the women's shoes were probably the biggest sort of size a woman would wear as well. So this was really confusing, like, and how would the attackers even know that the shoes were there? Because they would have been kept in one of the back rooms, surely. They wouldn't be on display because they weren't for sale.
Oh yeah, it'd be somewhere.
So if somebody was like trying things on, they'd be like, here, do you want to try on like with a pair of shoes? So they'd go and get them.
Yeah, unless they have them dotted around. I mean, they might have them in the shop.
No, they only had 2 pairs of shoes.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah, just 2 pairs. One pair of women's and one pair of men's. So that's what I'm assuming they had a place for them.
Yeah.
And the staff would just bring them out when somebody wanted to try them on. So yeah, how would the attackers know about these shoes? So along with that, there were just some other details that bothered the officers, things that just seemed a bit weird. Like, why didn't the killers bring weapons with them? Like, even the cable ties were from the shop. They were on a shelf in the shop. So it's like, you're going into a clothes shop. You're not going to assume that there's going to be a toolbox there or that there's going to be cable ties there or anything like that. So,
I mean, if it was a random attack, and they've just taken an opportunity and they've came in and then they've found stuff to use, that could easily be that as well.
It could be, yeah, but I'm just going on what the police were thinking, because they were thinking, like, if you're attacking someone, surely you haven't got time to be looking for items. Surely you would become prepared. And the injuries seem weird as well. Why were Jayna's so bad, but Brittany's were only superficial?
Oh, yeah.
And there was the fact that the Apple Store employees had their ears pressed up against the wall, and they said they heard a female voice speak twice. So if they could hear that, how come they didn't hear a male voice? Because remember, Brittany had said that her attacker was shouting racial slurs at her. Yeah. So surely they would have heard that, wouldn't they?
Yeah. So
the description of the men were bothering officers as well. So Brittany had said that they were racist. So judging by what they were saying to her, like they would be white. She was assuming that they were white because they were being racist towards her.
Yeah.
So they were murderers, they were thieves, they were rapists. And the police were thinking, that's a lot to be all of that.
Yeah.
And plus there was 2 of them. Like, I mean, that's like the worst person you could sort of describe, apart from paedophilia being in there, but you know what I mean? Like, that's kind of the worst person that you could describe, but yeah, and there was actually 2 of them running around. Like, it just seemed to be a lot, that there was 2 men who were that despicable, running around, killing one person but leaving a witness as well. So it just didn't seem to add up, and that's when the lead detective began to suspect that Brittany was lying.
I know, because I was thinking, is that where we're headed here? Because it does sound like that now.
That she might even be the killer.
Wow, okay.
So meanwhile, other officers found Jayna's car. Brittany had said that Jayna had parked right in front of the shop. She'd actually parked illegally, but because she was only running in and out, she obviously thought that wouldn't matter.
Especially that time of night.
Yeah. But the next day the car wasn't there. The car obviously had been moved.
Right.
So they found the car 3 blocks away.
Right.
In like just a random car park, I think it was. And when they looked in the car, there were blood smears on the inside. The DNA analysis came back saying that the blood was Brittany's and Jayna's. So there's also a Lululemon hat in the car that was proved to be Brittany's as well. So they went back to Brittany to ask more questions, but they didn't tell her like that they'd found the car or anything like that, what they suspected. They asked her if she knew what Jayna's car looked like, and she was quite vague and said that she'd only seen it once and that she'd never been in it. So there you go.
Well, your blood's in it.
Yeah, so although they knew she was lying, though, they were still not having to prove that she was involved in Jayna's death. So as they were trying to figure out what to do next, Brittany actually called the police and asked if she could come back in, if she wanted to tell them some things that she had forgotten and they had just popped back into her head. So she came into the station where sister Marissa and her brother Chris. She told the police that she had just remembered...
Oh God, this is going to be so unbelievable.
Yeah, she actually had been in Jayna's car before.
Oh.
And she'd actually drove it on the night of the murder.
Okay, so how do you forget that and then all of a sudden remember that?
So,
did she have some kind of realisation about, oh shit, because she really did drive it and she knew there'd be DNA, that they knew that she'd be in the car. This is her trying to backtrack
It
and...
looks like it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So she claimed that before she was sexually assaulted and tied up, they made her move Jayna's car. This is very unbelievable, is it? Right, she said that they told her they were watching her do it, and if she tried to alert anybody for help, they would kill her. But that this totally doesn't make sense to me, because what kind of attackers are just going to trust her to drive the car 3 blocks away and then come back?
Exactly. Like, I'm not even
And how are
funny.
they going to know she's going to alert somebody?
Yeah, I'm not even funny, but 3 blocks is well, I can't think of exactly the distance, but it's like going to be enough distance
That they're not going to be able to see her.
that you're not going to be able to see her. If that was me and I had been given that opportunity to do that, I'm sorry, I'd be straight away to the police, or even phone like somebody that I know, phone the police.
It's just bullshit.
Yeah, it is. It's just bullshit.
Yeah. So, cause, like, the police...
There's no logical reason why you would go and do that and then come back.
Well, yeah, the police just weren't buying it.
No.
Because, like, why wouldn't she just keep driving to the nearest police station?
Even just to save herself. I mean, even if it was too late for Jayna, she could still alert the police and they could at least try and get there and do something.
And, well, she probably she wouldn't have known for sure if Jayna was dead. So there might still be hope for her.
That's true.
So they asked Brittany if she saw anyone on the walk back, because she actually, this is her saying, she parked at 3 blocks away and then she walked back.
You wouldn't walk back to be tortured and stabbed and
maybe murdered.
Maybe murdered, yeah. I'm sorry, but you wouldn't.
But, so they asked if she saw anyone on the way back. She said yes. But she didn't seem to wonder why nobody stopped to ask her if she was okay, considering she was apparently covered in blood and had a big head wound. Like, you would think, come on, somebody must have asked.
Well, exactly.
Well, maybe not. I mean, the Apple Store didn't bother to phone the police.
That's true, I suppose you should.
But yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous.
It is.
So they tried to get a confession out of her, as they knew her story was just absurd, but she stuck to her story like word for word. She'd obviously been rehearsing it. So they weren't getting anywhere with her, so they decided to bring her brother and sister into the room to see if it would help her confess, because apparently sometimes when your family is around you, you feel less comfortable with lying.
Right.
But her sister was just a blubbering mess, because the police told her that they had evidence to believe that Brittany was lying, and I think she realised that Brittany was responsible, and she was just that was too much for her, and so she was taken back out of the room. So they focused on the brother instead and told him that the evidence was pointing towards Brittany being the killer. And can you imagine? Like, can you imagine that? Like, if that was me, you'd probably go, "Oh yeah, it was her." She doesn't like people. It was probably her.
Yeah.
She did it.
I know, but still the shock of realising that your brother or sister or whatever has done something really bad, then that must be.
And she like, Brittany just either kept silent or she was denying what they were saying. So the officers decided to leave the room and let them talk. So when they left, Brittany asked Chris if they were still being recorded, and Chris said no. And I'm like, why would you think you're not being recorded? Obviously that's why the officers have left.
Well, duh.
To see if you're going to say anything to
If you
each
get yourself
other.
in trouble, do not speak when they leave the room. You do not speak when they leave the room freely, because you know fine well they're recording it, they're watching you, they're listening.
Oh, well, she obviously didn't.
And how would your brother know that they're recording or not? Like, how would he know? If you don't know, he's not going to know.
Oh, well, I just think it's pretty common sense. That you're in a police station, you're being accused of murder, I think they're going to be recording you. They're not going to let you just have a chat with your brother.
Well, exactly.
So Chris asked Brittany if she did it, and she repeatedly said no, she didn't. She then said that she didn't want to talk about it, and she didn't want to talk about it there. She was saying to Chris, "I'll talk to you about it when we get home," and Chris had to tell her, but they're not going to let you just go home.
No.
So Brittany then said, "I just don't want anyone to be disappointed in me." So to me, that's kind of a confession.
Oh, yeah.
Because why?
Yeah, well, you're not going to tell the truth because you don't want people to know what you really did.
Yeah, why are they going to be... I mean, if she had actually been attacked by 2 men, why would anybody be disappointed in her?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So... And he said that what the detective had said seemed pretty believable. So he had to tell him what... So you were saying to Brittany, you have to tell me what happened so I can at least try and get you out of here. So she kept apologising, and he said, "Stop apologising, why did you do it?" And she said she didn't know what happened. He then asked her if she'd been trying to shoplift, because we'll get onto that in a bit. And she kept asking if they were being recorded, and again Chris said they weren't. He kept asking her what happened, and she said, "I really did forget my wallet." So I'm not actually sure if that was true or not, or if... I don't know if she did, or she just used that as an excuse to get Jayna back to the shop, or if she just thought, oh. Because surely she would have attacked her the first time. No, wait a minute. Oh, we'll get on to it. We'll get on to it.
Okay.
But my brain's just started thinking, and it shouldn't have. So he kept, he kept asking her what happened, and she said, I did forget my wallet. So he told her that they were going to have to get a lawyer, and she was going to have to tell the truth. I'm not sure of his exact words, but he basically told her that they would have to come up with a story to make it look like Jayna had attacked Brittany, and that she had acted in self-defence. Like, come on, I know you're her brother, but seriously, how can you defend a murderer like that? And like, that poor Jayna, she was a victim, she has a family, like, don't make her out to be the bad one. That's horrendous.
That is awful.
Yeah.
And I think about all those wounds that she's got, that ain't self-defence.
No, of course not. So Brittany was then arrested, and she spent 7 months in prison waiting for her trial. So it turns out that Brittany was a bit of a thief. So that's why Chris had asked her straight away, did Jayna catch you shoplifting? So the soccer team that she had played for, they'd started noticing things would go missing in the changing rooms when she started playing for them. And she'd actually already been sacked from another Lululemon shop for stealing. So I don't know how she actually managed to get a job in that Lululemon shop.
Yeah, unless they obviously didn't communicate.
Well,
somehow.
obviously not. But apparently this Lululemon shop were planning on sacking her as well.
Right.
But they were just waiting on catching her in the act. So the other girls who worked there had been getting money stolen and like other stuff out their bags, and it was always when Brittany was on shift.
Right.
But they couldn't sack her without proof, so that's why they were waiting. They had to wait for her actually.
But see, that's why you need CCTV. And you could have got her.
So the night of the murder, she was actually caught, and that was by Jayna. So Jayna, so she must have lured her back on the pretense of losing the wallet, because it was when they were leaving the first time that she caught her stealing. Yeah, sorry, that was when I was. Anyway, so yeah, Jayna caught her stealing yoga pants. At Lululemon, when you're leaving, you check each other's bags.
Right.
They mustn't have had security guards to do that. So you check each other's bags, and of course she saw the pants in Brittany's bag. So she asked Brittany if she had paid for them, and she said yes, she bought them from another manager. So Jayna called this other manager and asked if Brittany had bought them, and she said no. And she also checked the till as well, and there was like no transaction to show that, so they knew they were definitely stolen. So she had said to Brittany that she would have to report her to Rachel, the manager, and they would deal with it the next day. So they did go their separate ways, but then Brittany lured Jayna back to the shop. So yeah, she must have just used that. Or then again, maybe she didn't. I don't know, because maybe she did actually leave her wallet there, and it just kind of came to her once they were back there. I don't know. So I don't know if she intended on it. I don't know if it was like, if maybe she was thinking about it on the walk home, and I don't know. Yeah,
because she might have panicked, thinking, oh no, I'm going to get in trouble tomorrow. And
yeah, but so what? You're going to get in trouble, like...
Well, you shouldn't fault.
You've been sacked from one Lululemon, you can get a job somewhere else.
I was going to say, it's your own fault, stop stealing.
Yeah. And it just goes to show how cold and calculated she was, because, you know, she murdered Jayna, and then she tried to make it look like two men had robbed and attacked them. And that's where the shoes came into it. So she walked in the blood with her own shoes on, and then she put the men's ones on and walked the blood in them. But then she washed the soles and put them back, not realising that she hadn't washed them properly. There were still bits of blood on them. So then she cut herself, however many times, and she tied her own hands and her feet and lay there until they were discovered in the morning. I mean, to do that is just so
awful.
To lie there all night knowing that there's a dead body that you killed.
Yeah, that's awful.
Oh,
and then she must have clocked the two boys that were walking past the shop at the time and thought, oh.
No, I don't think she did. I think that was just a massive coincidence.
Was coincidence. I thought maybe she'd noticed them walking past.
I mean, she might have, but it's not been reported that that's what happened. But from what I read, it was just a massive coincidence. Well, that she just said it was two men all dressed in black, which I suppose isn't too hard to kind of...
yeah.
So that's why Brittany murdered Jayna, because she was going to report her for shoplifting a pair of yoga pants.
Wow.
So it wasn't even that she had anything against Jayna, it was just she was the one that caught her. That could have been anyone.
Yeah, so if anybody else had caught her.
And it just so happened to Jayna, but the worst bit is, Jayna wasn't even supposed to be working that night.
Oh, was she covering her shift?
Yeah, she was swapped shift with another girl.
Oh. Well,
I know, like, so it could have been another girl that caught her, and...
Or she might not have caught her.
Or she might not have looked, she might be just like, I don't know, I mean, but it could have been someone else, it might not have been Jayna, well, But yeah,
still, I mean, I'm not even funny, but don't kill someone over a bloody... If you're a thief, I mean, own up to it. I mean, stop stealing. Christ, stop bloody stealing. Or if you're going to steal and get caught, you've got to deal with the consequences of that. Which clearly she had already dealt with consequences by being sacked from another shop.
I know, just...
She must have had a moment of madness. I mean, was it a moment of madness? Was it just a... Surely, I mean, but it doesn't sound like it was necessarily premeditated. Because obviously she was hoping... No, she would have known she would have got caught shoplifting that night. So...
But I think it was premeditated in the sense that because she let Jayna go the first time, because...
Yeah.
So it was premeditated, but just not very long before it was actually done. Because she was convicted on the 26th of July 2012, Brittany was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Deserved. Absolutely deserved.
Yeah. There you go.
Wow.
That was a pretty horrible one, wasn't it?
That's awful.
I know. Really absolutely horrible. Just for catching her stealing.
Exactly. And
the thing is, she wouldn't have been even be the one that dealt with her. You know, she was just reporting her.
Yeah.
So...
I know, that's awful. That really is awful.
You don't kill somebody for that. You don't kill somebody for anything.
Oh, no, exactly. But, I mean, come on. I mean... You know, if you're going to steal stuff, then you've got to deal with the consequences if you get caught. I mean, you just shouldn't be stealing in the first place, but, you know, if you do it and you get caught, you've got to deal with the consequences, and that poor girl doesn't deserve to lose her life. She was clearly going to do the right thing by reporting her because she has stolen stuff.
Just doing her job. And
yeah, that poor girl has lost her life over that, over a 50-60 pound pair of Lulu legging pants.
It's not worth it, really, is it?
It's not worth it.
It's not worth killing. It's not that. As I said, that poor woman lost her life and she's ended up in prison for it.
It's not even like she just killed her. I mean, she absolutely killed her. If you know what I mean? Like, she didn't just stab her or once or anything like that, which is obviously horrific enough. She tortured her. She made her suffer majorly.
It just sounds like there was like major anger in there to commit
which I'm assuming was like what the Apple people would have heard was Jayna saying, "Talk to me," as in like, you know, you don't need to do this.
You don't need to do this.
Yeah.
And I think I'm not sure if they. Well, I just don't think that they did the right thing. They just should have. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I get that, you know, there is this sort of bystander effect where you kind of, you know, people maybe do kind of overlook things, but if it did...
Well, I mean, they could never have known what was happening through the walls. I mean, they could never have imagined the horrific crime that was getting committed. Totally understand that. But, I mean, I don't know, I mean, whatever you've heard, I mean, obviously it's not...
They must feel horrendous, so they must feel really guilty, and in a way I'm kind of like, well, you should. I know that sounds horrible, and we really shouldn't kind of blame people for not doing stuff. I mean, you know, they weren't the murderers, but they could have maybe stopped it.
Yeah, I mean, they
I mean, I know and like, as we've always said, hindsight is 20/20. But, you know, so people, please, just if you hear anything that...
I mean, even if you're being stupid, I mean, sometimes it's better just to get it checked out than not, because you just don't know. I mean, you could have stumbled across a potential horrific crime about to take place or taking place that you might be able to at least, you know, help in some way.
Yeah, I mean,
I know it's not always easy, because sometimes you don't want to get involved in stuff, because you know, I say the classic bystander thing.
Yeah, as you said, like, a lot of people are like that. They just don't want to get involved. But when it's something like that...
I know, but they would never...
They wouldn't have known, I know. We should... I like, usually, you know, I wouldn't kind of say, well, they should have done this or they should have that. But really, they should have.
I know.
This time.
Well, the fact that they stood there up against a wall for a period of time listening to it, hearing stuff, I mean, and
apparently what they heard, it did sound quite bad. So... Yeah. I don't know. I just don't even understand why. If they just thought, oh, it's just... You know, a couple of women in there, they've had a falling out, or they've dropped something or something. Why not just send the security guard and just say, look, just go and knock on the door and kind of just check, or just walk in with them.
Yeah, because it could have given
just check everyone's alright.
Jayna an opportunity to scream for help. We could have, you know, frightened Brittany to stop what she was doing. It could have done anything. I mean, you know, if there's a security guard there that's trained in, obviously not dealing with murderers and stuff, but at least trained in dealing with an incident.
Yeah, they are.
Then he would have had the courage to go and at least go and knock on the door. And well, if the door was unlocked, he could have walked in.
Yeah.
And be like, shouted at, hello.
Well, I don't know if the door would be locked or not, because they might have
Well,
got
no.
the last customers out, locked the door, and then kind of
Well,
finished up.
because you said when she came in the morning, the door was unlocked.
Yeah,
The
because
manager.
Brittany went and moved the car.
Oh,
Afterwards,
yeah,
didn't she?
afterwards, yeah, that's true. But well, anyway, whatever. I mean, I think they might have been able to walk in.
Yeah.
And again, startle them and giving her the opportunity. You just don't know. I mean, I know
No.
you're not going to know. I mean, what's done is done, unfortunately. There was nothing that they could do to change it now. But
I bet they still feel dead guilty.
yeah, I think I probably would feel a bit guilty.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, thanks for that birthday episode.
So, yeah, happy birthday.
Thanks.
And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Oh, well, I'll try.
Thanks to everybody for listening. And if you would like to follow us on social media or support us on Patreon or buy me a coffee as well, I forgot about that. Just check out our show notes and our details are there.
And if you do want to continue listening to us and you enjoy our shows, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, review. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.